Hello, welcome to this webinar for federal staff working with the Promise Zone Initiative. I am Beth McGarry, the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Justice Programs. This webinar describes the programs and resources available from the Department of Justice's Office of Justice Programs and other DOJ components. I hope this information will help you strategize with your teams on the ground about how DOJ resources and expertise can help address local Promise Zone priorities. By the end of this session, participants will be able to identify DOJ programs that can help Promise Zone designees, locate additional information on DOJ resources, and make referrals or requests for DOJ training and technical assistance through OJP. The Department of Justice mission describes the department's responsibility for upholding law and order in the United States. The Department of Justice has many component agencies with missions specific to particular segments of the justice system or for a particular task. DOJ components include the grant-making divisions, the Office of Justice Programs, which is where I work, the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Service, or the COPS Office, and the Office on Violence Against Women. All three provide assistance to state, local, and tribal governments. DOJ also has major criminal investigative agencies: the FBI, DEA, and ATF, which prevent and deter crime and arrest criminal suspects. The U.S. Marshal Service is also part of DOJ, and they protect the federal judiciary, apprehend fugitives, and detain persons in federal custody. Although headquartered in Washington, D.C., the Department of Justice conducts much of its work in offices located throughout the country and overseas. For example, the 94 United States Attorney's offices prosecute offenders and represent the U.S. government in federal court. And all of the cities where you work, you are within one of the 94 U.S. Attorney's offices jurisdiction. The Office of Justice Programs, or OJP, provides leadership, resources, and solutions that promote public safety. OJP is the umbrella organization and has 6 program offices. Information about each of these offices is available at their respective websites, all of which can be conveniently reached through OJP's webpage at www.ojp.gov. The OJP program offices offer programming and resources across the spectrum of public safety, criminal justice, juvenile justice, victim services, and justice research and data collection. On the screen, you can see some examples of OJP's focus areas. The Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA, provides leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support local, state, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. Its overall goals are to reduce and prevent crime, violence, and drug abuse, and improve the functioning of the criminal justice system through enhanced coordination and cooperation among federal, state, local, and tribal efforts. BJA's work covers both emerging as well as persistent crime problems. For example, BJA recently released the report, Safeguarding Children of Arrested Parents. This report provides detailed policy and procedure recommendations and an in-depth look at the potential negative impact of parental arrest on children, and this is an area of emerging concern. Likewise, the BJA Law Enforcement Naloxone Toolkit is a clearinghouse of resources to support law enforcement agencies in establishing a naloxone program in response to the growing opiate overdose epidemic. And for those who you don't know, naloxone is an effective antidote to heroin and opiate overdose, which many police officers are being trained to administer when they come across the victim of an overdose. Another successful BJA product provided in the What Works in Reentry Clearinghouse. This resource is a one-stop shop for research on the effectiveness of a wide variety of reentry programs and practices, and which would be a great resource for all of you working in trauma zone communities. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention provides national leadership, coordination, and resources to prevent and respond to juvenile delinquency and victimization. OJJDP supports states and communities in their efforts to develop and implement effective and coordinated prevention and intervention programs, and to improve juvenile justice systems so that they protect public safety while at the same time hold offenders accountable and provide treatment and rehabilitative services tailored to the needs of juveniles and their families. I trust that many of your sites are involved with mentoring programs. One OJJDP product is the National Mentoring Resource Center. The center's goal is to improve the quality and effectiveness of mentoring across the country by supporting youth mentoring practitioners. What the National Mentoring Resource Center does is direct you to mentoring programs that work as proven by the evidence. Because of the proliferation of gang problems in large and small cities, suburbs, and even rural areas over the last 2 decades, OJJDP developed a website of a comprehensive, coordinated response to America's gang problem. And that website is on the left-hand side of your screen at the moment. Another comprehensive resource from OJJDP is the Model Programs Guide. This guide contains information about evidence-based juvenile justice and youth prevention, intervention, and reentry programs. It's a terrific resource for practitioners and communities about what works, what is promising, and what does not work in juvenile justice, delinquency prevention, and child protection and safety. It's just as important when you're implementing new programs in communities to know what programs don't work so that you're not wasting your precious funding on programs that have not been proven to be promising or effective. The Office for Victims of Crime works to enhance the nation's capacity to assist crime victims and to provide leadership in changing attitudes, policies, and practices to promote justice and healing for all victims. The Vision 21 initiative is the first comprehensive assessment of the victim assistance field in nearly 15 years. It provides a strong strategic plan for the next decade of work in this area. Each April, OVC helps lead communities throughout the country in their annual observance of National Crime Victims' Rights Week in support of victims of crime to empower them to direct their own recovery. Just last week, now former Attorney General Eric Holder presented this year's award recipients their recognition for the work they have done to assist crime victims or lead change in their community. And we were very honored that this was the last public event for former Attorney General Eric Holder as he acknowledged the great work of so many in the community who help victims. The SMART Office, or the Office of Sex Offender Sentencing, Monitoring, Apprehending, Registering, and Tracking, works to ensure that convicted sex offenders are prohibited from preying on citizens through a system of appropriate restrictions, regulations, and internment. The office provides guidance to states and local and tribal governments on implementation of the Adam Walsh Act. The office also is responsible for providing grants and technical assistance. The National Sex Offender Public Website, which has, of course, its own acronym, NSOPW, is an unprecedented public safety resource that provides the public with access to sex offender data nationwide. And through this website, you can just enter an address in your particular jurisdiction, and you can discover who the sex offenders are that reside in the neighborhood. The National Institute of Justice is our premier research component, and they are responsible for research development and evaluation. NIJ provides objective, independent, and evidence-based knowledge and tools to enhance the administration of justice and public safety. NIJ solicits grant applications to inform its search for the knowledge and tools to guide public policy and practice. For example, NIJ recently released a report that describes findings about unsubmitted sexual assault kits. A multidisciplinary team investigated the situation and found a number of effective and sustainable responses and ways to prevent the problem from recurring. NIJ is working on cutting-edge research in many areas of criminal justice system reform. For example, NIJ's Sentinel Events Initiative borrows extensively from medicine and aviation to promote a more forward-thinking, non-blaming, problem-solving approach when things go wrong in the criminal justice system. You may recall if there's an airplane crash, the National Transportation Safety Board goes to the site and talks to everyone involved and to discover what was the cause of the accident. Similarly, the Sentinel Events Initiative's goal is to strengthen the criminal justice system and the prevention of future system errors. NIJ's recently completed pilot test of the Sentinel Events Review concept assisted 3 localities to examine and develop recommendations around the circumstances that led to wrongful convictions, the acceptance of false confessions, significant police misconduct, and violent serial offenses of persons known to the justice system. NIJ also has an Office of Science and Technology that manages a voluntary compliance testing program to ensure the personal body armor, often known in the vernacular as bulletproof vests, sold to law enforcement agencies across the U.S. is effective and urges all law enforcement officers to purchase and wear body armor that meets the current NIJ standard. PoliceArmor.org is a site that helps law enforcement and corrections officers access information on how to select, wear, and care for body armor. And in fact, just this year, NIJ is developing new standards for body armor for women. So now we're going to show you a video clip of the importance for police officers always to wear their body armor.
All participants are now in listen-only mode. Officer Kyle Russell was training a new recruit
when they spotted a car driving erratically and in a dangerous manner on Interstate 395 near Washington, D.C. They pursued the car, and the driver eventually pulled over. Here's what happened next.
As I approached the car, I was able to look in, and I saw that he's a male driver. I immediately thought he was in medical distress. So, walked up to the car a little more, and I kind of turned my body, and I looked in, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he looked up with me and growled at me as he said, "Hi." Simultaneously, he reached on his right leg and pulled out a .45 caliber pistol and shot me once in the chest. I was able to dive for cover, and he took off down 395 towards D.C.
Officers pursued the vehicle a short distance. The driver turned the gun on himself on the side of I-395. Law enforcement went to the driver's apartment and found his deceased wife. He had shot her just before his encounter with Officer Russell. He's gone over the event of that night many times, and Officer Russell considers himself fortunate to have been wearing the body armor that he put on every day as part of the routine preparation for his shift.
Well, without a doubt, it saved my life. I wouldn't have been here. It was dead on, hard shot. My life is fantastic. Since the incident, I've gotten married. I have 2 beautiful kids. I couldn't be happier.
Officer Russell advises all officers to wear their vests on every shift.
Definitely need to wear them. They're there for protection. They work.
For more information, contact the National Law Enforcement and Corrections Technology Center at justnet.org.
The Bureau of Justice Statistics collects, analyzes, publishes, and disseminates information on crime, criminal offenders, victims of crime, and the operation of justice systems at all levels of government. These data are critical to federal, state, and local policymakers in combating crime and ensuring that justice is both efficient and even-handed. And I can predict that any article that you read that talks about crime statistics, you will find their source to be the Bureau of Justice Statistics. The National Crime Victimization Survey, or NCVS, was instituted in 1972 to produce national estimates of the levels and characteristics of criminal victimization in the United States, including crime not reported to police departments. So this was a very big innovation for the NCVS because often the crime statistics were just those reported to police. So along with the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program, the NCVS constitutes a key component of our nation's system to measure the extent and nature of crime in the U.S. Now I'm going to cover in more depth some of the primary place-based programs at OJP and the Department of Justice that you might find useful as resources for Promise Zone sites. The first is the Byrne Criminal Justice Innovation Program. And as with every federal program, we have to have an acronym, BCJI. Supports data-driven, comprehensive responses to crime in some of the country's most troubled communities. The program uses data and research to guide program strategy. It engages the community members in shaping crime prevention and revitalization efforts, tackles problems through cross-sector partnerships, and integrates crime control efforts with revitalization strategies. The BCJI Competitive Grant Program provides special consideration for applications from areas designated as Promise Zones. The next solicitation, or in some of your language, NOFA, will be posted in early 2016. We've already posted and closed the application for FY15. So now we're going to see a video clip about the BCJI program in Milwaukee.
Well, the role that Washington Park Partners and the United Methodist Church has played in making the Washington Park neighborhood a safer place to live is that it became like an anchor institute, a place where community residents could voice their complaints and maybe try to finally have some change in the neighborhood. One of the things that we've recognized in Washington Park around the Burn Initiative is that crisis is not the time to get to know the partners. In the case of Washington Park, UMCS, Washington Park Partners, and WIC, based in town, are all partners that help us understand what the problem is and get to the root cause.
Milwaukee Police Department has really embraced collaboration. It comes to every monthly safety meeting with Washington Park Partners. At our annual gathering, residents have developed such strong relationships with Milwaukee Police Department officers that they're able to recognize each other by name and hug each other when they see each other.
So what happens is when you have a team around the table to tackle any problem, it is a very powerful thing.
You can't arrest your way out of most problems. So to really improve a neighborhood, we need to have communication with the business owners, with the residents, and come up with a plan together.
It's looking at workforce initiatives. It's looking at better housing.
So if we're shutting down a house, we're no longer just boarding it up and leaving it there because it was a problem. We are removing bad people from the location, but we're also looking for the long-term change. Who can we get in to rehab the house? Can we work with the mayor's office, or can we work with Habitat for Humanity or other housing developers and make this into a owner-occupied home?
We're starting to see a lot of rebuilds, a lot of fractional structures go up. We're starting to see some real bad properties get raised and taken down, and that also helps breathe the life into the community.
The Washington Park neighborhood has nearly 2 times the city average of convenience store licenses as well as liquor store licenses, and we were receiving a lot of complaints about nuisance activity happening near or around the convenience stores.
We give them an opportunity as a group to understand what a best practice is and what they should be striving to do. Everyone knows who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong. Sometimes there's social pressure begins to regulate among that community when we're not watching.
Not everyone can be lucky enough to have a firm funding, but reach out to your local list. And if you don't have a local list, reach out to the national list and say, we need technical assistance. We'd like to learn from your knowledge and expertise in this area of community development.
So as these best practices develop, we're constantly thinking of how do we get better? How do we apply it to the next neighborhood? And it is a constant process of engagement with the community and with our partners. You know, that's a good feeling to know that I can make a difference where I live at, because now I'm really helping transform my community.
As you all know, coordination and collaboration is key to the success in our cities. One of our newer initiatives is the Violence Reduction Network, or VRN, and it's a comprehensive approach to violence reduction for some of our nation's most violent cities. This is an all DOJ initiative, something brand new, where we've partnered the DOJ federal law enforcement agency and all 3 DOJ grant components, where we go to the cities and we listen to their public safety needs, and then we help fill the gaps or enhance their strategy. And we've had great success in our first 5 cities: Camden, Chicago, Detroit, Oakland, Richmond Cooperative in California, and Wilmington, Delaware. And we will be announcing our new cities in September 2015. Another one of our initiatives that ensures that we have coordination and collaboration is the National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention. This is a national conversation about youth and gang violence to increase awareness, drive action, and build local capacity to address youth violence. The forum represents a new kind of federal and local collaboration. The forum encourages its members to change the way they do business by sharing common challenges and promising strategies through comprehensive planning and coordinated action. The 15 cities, along with invited cities from the Violence Reduction Network, so that we're showing cross-collaboration across our initiatives, will be coming to the D.C. metro area on the week of May 11th, where we'll be having our forum summit. DOJ launched the Defending Childhood initiative to address a national crisis, the exposure of Americans' children to violence as victims and as witnesses. DOJ awarded grants to 8 sites in cities and tribal communities around the country to develop strategic plans for comprehensive community-based efforts. And each of these sites received additional support to help launch, sustain, and expand programs and organizations focused on development of community-based solutions to address children exposed to violence. The OJP Diagnostic Center is a technical assistance resource designed to help state, city, county, and tribal policymakers and community leaders use data to make decisions about public safety programming. Communities engage with the Diagnostic Center by having a local leader request assistance through the center's website, www.ojpdiagnosticcenter.org. The Diagnostic Center also serves as the intake point for technical assistance requests coming into the Office of Justice programs. Now we're going to see a video clip about the great work done by the OJP Diagnostic Center.
When I first reached out to the Department of Justice, I really didn't know about the Diagnostic Center. What I knew was that we had a problem, we needed some help, and help more in the way of technical assistance than anything else. And so we were connected with the Diagnostic Center, and that was a result of us reaching out about the violent crime and about the murder rate increasing in the city of Gary. I have found the Diagnostic Center to be extremely helpful, and they've been helpful for another number of reasons. The first is that as an independent third party, they don't have an axe to grind. They don't have a horse in the race, so to speak. And so they can come in with a fresh set of eyes, whether it is in their assessment of the law enforcement team that we have on the ground, whether it's in their assessment of our community partnerships. And because of their expertise in a variety of areas, it's something that we feel comfortable accepting their assessment. Since our work with the Diagnostic Center, I have noticed that people are more comfortable in really looking at what our challenges are, in having someone help with those challenges, and they have become more confident in our ability to really solve the problems that are confronting our community.
Our newest initiative, the National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice, was launched even before the events in Ferguson last summer. And this is an initiative that combines research, technical assistance, and innovative strategies to help repair and strengthen the relationship among law enforcement, the criminal justice system, and the communities they serve. The initiative will explore strategies in 5 pilot sites: Birmingham, Alabama, Stockton, California, Gary, Indiana, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've already launched an online clearinghouse, and through the work in these cities, we will conduct seminal research on 3 important areas: enhancing procedural justice, reducing implicit bias, and supporting racial reconciliation. All of these efforts respect and honor the critical work that law enforcement officers do every day to keep us safe and reaffirm their integral role as members of the communities they serve. As all of you know, My Brother's Keeper is a key initiative of President Obama. OJP chairs a key work group in the President's My Brother's Keeper initiative. Through the Reducing Violence and Providing a Second Chance work group, OJP and federal partners are addressing 4 recommendations. Institutionalize community-oriented policing practices and address racial and ethnic bias within juvenile and criminal justice systems. 2, integrate public health and positive youth development strategies to reduce violence in high-risk communities. 3, reduce unnecessary interactions between youth and the justice system, enforce the rights of incarcerated youth to quality education, and 4, eliminate unnecessary barriers to giving justice-involved youth a second chance. Another OJP program, the Building Neighborhood Capacity Program, helps low-income neighborhoods build infrastructure and access resources needed to ensure residents experience better results around education, employment, safety, housing, and other areas. The purpose of the Smart Policing Program is to identify tactics, practices, and strategies that are effective, efficient, and economical, as measured by reduced crime and higher closure rates. To benefit law enforcement in this area of budget constraints and limited staffing, we have practitioners partner with a researcher to test out promising programs. As you can see from their tagline, Data, Analysis, and Solution, a focus of OJP is to promote evidence-based programs that we can prove are effective. CrimeSolutions.gov is a great resource. It's hosted by the Office of Justice Program. It uses rigorous research to determine what works in criminal justice, juvenile justice, and crime victim services. This online searchable database uses rigorous review methodology so communities can figure out which programs and practices are likely to lead to positive changes in public safety. You really don't want to reinvent the wheel by designing a new program when there is a program that has been proven by rigorous research to be effective. You also don't want to invest in a program that research has proven has no beneficial effect. So the CrimeSolutions.gov updates their website very frequently, and it's very searchable in a number of program areas, such as corrections and reentry, courts, crime and crime prevention, drugs and substance abuse, juveniles, law enforcement, technology and forensics, and victims and victimization. As I said previously, the COPS office is another grant-making component in the Department of Justice. The COPS office is dedicated to the concept that trust and mutual respect between police and the communities they serve is critical to public safety. This concept is the foundation of community policing and ensures that police and community stakeholders partner in solving our nation's crime challenges. The COPS hiring program provides funds directly to law enforcement agencies to hire new and or rehire full-time career sworn law enforcement officers. and to increase their community policing capacity and crime prevention efforts. The fiscal year 2015 COPS Hiring Grant Program is an open solicitation. All state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies that have primary law enforcement authority are eligible to apply. The FY15 COPS Hiring Program solicitation will be opening in May. Additional consideration will be given to applicants located in promise zones. COPS also provides local technical assistance under its Collaborative Reform Initiative. The goals of collaborative reform are to enhance the relationship between law enforcement and the community, build community partnerships, increase transparency, sustain the reforms, and increase community trust and confidence. The third grant-making component is the Office on Violence Against Women, and it was created to implement the Violence Against Women Act. OVW funding is provided to local, state, and tribal governments, courts, nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, secondary schools, institutions of higher education, and state and tribal coalitions. Since 1995, OVW has awarded nearly $6 billion in grants and cooperative agreements. One such grant project, the Lethality Assessment Program, is a collaboration between police and social service providers consisting of two steps. First, a police officer responding to the scene of a domestic violence incident uses a brief risk assessment to identify victims at high risk of homicide. Second, women that screen in as high risk based on the lethality screen are put in an immediate telephone contact with a collaborating social service provider who provides them with advocacy, safety planning, and referral for services. A program evaluation, which is a research evaluation of the program, showed that women who participated in the lethality assessment program were more likely to report decreased violence at follow-up than comparable non-participants, and also reported using more self-protective strategies. So as we've talked about the collaboration and coordination, we're also doing that within the Department of Justice. So one of the violence reduction network cities was having difficulty preventing domestic violence homicide. So the Office of Violence Against Women went to that city, trained the police officers and the community on the lethality assessment program, and which is helping that city address the issue of domestic violence homicide. Many of you have heard of Project Safe Neighborhoods. This program has been part of the Department of Justice since approximately 2002, 2001. PSN is designed to create safer neighborhoods through a sustained reduction in crime associated with gang and gun violence. The program's effectiveness is based on the cooperation of local, state, and federal agencies engaged in a unified approach led by the U.S. Attorney in each district. This program is a little different in that you don't apply directly through grants.gov to be part of Project Safe Neighborhoods. The city's application is made in conjunction with the local U.S. Attorney's Office. So we have many resources for tribal communities. All of DOJ's components, including OJP, the COPS office, OVW, and the DOJ Office on Tribal Justice, work together to provide the most efficient, timely information to tribal communities, including resources, grant funding, training, and technical assistance specifically geared towards tribes. We instituted a coordinated tribal assistance solicitation, which we call CTAS, so that federally recognized tribes and tribal consortia can submit just one single application for most all of the Justice Department's tribal grant programs. DOJ designed this comprehensive approach to save time and resources for the tribes and allow tribes and the department to better understand the tribe's overall public safety needs. This solicitation generally opens in December and closes in March, and so it has closed for fiscal year 15, but it will reopen again either in November or December of this year. DOJ's Tribal Justice and Safety website acts as a one-stop shop for tribal communities and includes policy initiatives and grant opportunities. We developed it to be a user-friendly, updated, and comprehensive resource for American Indian and Alaska Native tribal communities to help improve public safety. And this website is available from the DOJ homepage under the tab Agencies. So OJP's Funding Resource Center, which can be accessed from OJP's homepage, includes information on current funding opportunities. It has the OJP program plan, which we develop for each fiscal year, that is searchable for funding opportunities through 10 thematically organized sections that cut across OJP's program offices. The Grants Information Resource Center also includes a Grants 101 feature, which is an overview of the grant process at DOJ, a step-by-step guide on how to apply for funding, a description of the application review process, and links to other resources, including the OJP Financial Guide and sample application materials. So after years of experience at the Office of Justice Programs, I can offer you some of my best funding application tips for communities. One, start early. There's many requirements to successfully submitting a grant application, and if you wait till the last minute and procrastinate, you will not be able to get your application in. Even if you start early, you have to submit an approach that's comprehensive, coordinated, and collaborative. Make sure your programming is evidence-based. You can use the resources at crimesolutions.gov to see about the successful programs and adapt them for using in your community. And be sure to demonstrate partnerships to achieve your project goals. No longer are we making grants to just one-off projects. We really want to show that we really want to fund initiatives that are collaborative across many agencies in a community. So finally, how to access technical assistance. You can get information about any of the programs I covered today from the OJP, COPS office, or Violence Against Women office from their websites, which are noted in the slides. And all of these slides will be available to you for reference on the OMB Max portal. In addition, you can request a referral to any of the DOJ Technical Assistance Programs by contacting the OJP Diagnostic Center, which will refer each request to the appropriate DOJ or OJP entity for assistance. And I think now we're going to take some of the questions that came in through the chat feature, and then we will go to the phone. So the first question was about, we're going to read it in total.
Oh, sorry. So we have one question from Guadalupe. The planning grants from DOJ that were addressed earlier, do they go into housing, transportation, or environmental justice issues?
Thank you for the question. OJP grants may be made to state, local, and tribal governments and public agencies, institutions of higher learning, and community-based and private organizations, depending on the grant program. Our programs focus on improving public safety and victim services, so that has to be the primary goal of the grant. The BCJI grants, for example, can be used to cover a variety of evidence-based strategies, but the focus has to be improving safety in communities. If the primary focus is housing, then a DOJ grant would not be appropriate.
And we have another one from Eric Yost. He's one of our community liaisons out in the Los Angeles Promise Zone. If we wanted our LA Promise Zone if we wanted our LA, we got another one, sorry. Only one DOJ grant has preference points to date for Promise Zone, the BCJI. Why? Let me go back up. Come in faster, I think. Why aren't others offering Promise Zone benefits?
We do have a second grant program that offers Promise Zone benefits, and that's the COPS hiring grant. And that also has a preference, and that is going to be open in May. The BCI grant, as I said, has closed already, but those are our two DOJ programs that offer preferences to Promise Zone sites.
And we have another one also from Eric Yost out in LA. If we wanted our LA Promise Zone lead government agency, the City of Los Angeles, to chat with DOJ about their programs, who is the primary contact?
So the primary contact is the Diagnostic Center. They will be able to funnel all your requests to the specific program manager, but the best place to start is the Diagnostic Center because they have the knowledge of all the DOJ programs and can provide the one-stop shop that you're looking for.
And we also have one from John Groton. Many urban areas are dealing with vacant and blighted building conditions that foster criminal activity. Question: what DOJ programs might be used to address blighted conditions? For example, cities may need help with code enforcement, vacant building acquisition/demolition, and prosecuting/cleaning illegal dumping. Clean up illegal dumping.
So this, yes, is a frequent problem in many of our cities. And when we talk about these partnerships, because of the conditions that you described do affect public safety, they can be addressed by many of our programs. So once again, I will make a plug for the Diagnostic Center because they have helped communities on blight and in urban settings, and that they can assist you with finding the right resources. We do have one more also from Eric. LA Mayor Garcetti recently announced community-based policing. The COPS program sounds like a great opportunity, especially since it will have preference points. Am I correct that the COPS program is focused on community-based policing? You are correct. The COPS office, if you do not discuss your plans for community policing in your application, you will not be successful. So I think that this is a good avenue for you to explore. I suggest you give the Diagnostic Center a call because then they can direct you to the right person at COPS for their hiring grant, which will be opening soon. I will warn you, there's a very popular grant program, and so they have many more applications than they have funding for. So, but, please, that sounds like a good avenue to pursue.
If it's all right, we can open up the phones. I don't see any other questions coming in online.
All participants are now in interactive talk mode.
So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to ask.
This is Eric Yost in the LA Promise Zone, and thank you very much for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I learned quite a lot, and it seems like there are quite a lot of grants that are available through the Department of Justice, and so this really helps us to kind of understand which groups they fall under. I had a question for you specifically in regards to DOJ's role with My Brother's Keeper and how that program potentially could be expanded to include some of our areas in Promise Zones, or whether or not that period is closed for that.
My Brother's Keeper was not a specific new grant funding program. It's really trying to organize current resources around the objectives of the program. But Eric, if we'll be able to get your number from the folks here, and I can have the folks in our office who work directly with the My Brother's Keeper program follow up with you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Hi, I have a question about rural communities and how they might access some of the funds, because most of the places you cited seem to be urban areas, so could you talk a little bit about rural initiatives?
So all of our programs are open to rural communities, and we are really trying to make sure that in all of our programs that, we are addressing rural areas. You're right, I didn't emphasize them as much today in the presentation, but we have done work in rural communities. And I have some experts here in the room with me and might ask them to address some of our work in rural communities.
This is Catherine Dark from the Office of Justice Program. Thank you for your question about how DOJ programs serve rural communities. In addition to being eligible to apply for most of our grant-funded programs, and we do encourage communities who haven't had a lot of business with the Department of Justice before to apply for a regular funding stream. Rural communities are also addressed specifically through the tribal programs at OJP in places where Indian Territory is crossing rural jurisdiction lines. And of course, at the Diagnostic Center, we are also eager to work with smaller communities who may have issues they'd like to see addressed, but it doesn't coincide with the correct funding program, or perhaps they have concerns about their eligibility for the funding program. So if you use that contact information on your slide now, you will be patched in to people at the Diagnostic Center who can also talk to you specifically about your concerns. For example, the department is working right now in the Northwest, in the South Dakota and Minnesota area on crimes that are accompanying the expansion of oil pipeline building. So we're very interested in public safety outcomes, for example, in rural communities in that area of the country. That's an example of the work that we do, but we're happy to talk to you about other needs that your community has.
Thank you.
And we have time for one more question. If not, thanks for joining us. If you do have any questions later on, you can feel free to email any of the contacts that were given to you today or myself. All these slides, as well as this recording, will be on our max.gov website, as well as the DOJ's website that was given to you earlier. The max.gov website is on the invite, so you can go in there and you should be able to have them up by the end of the day. So
Thank you all very much for participating, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very informative. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thanks,
You're welcome.
Yeah, well done, Josh.